evening and welcome to ELOSOFUMARTAKES. This is our 209th take live from the Alec Bradley Lone Star studio of Azle, Texas. I'm your host, Barry Duplessis, as always, and I'm so proud, so pleased, and so privileged to be with you all tonight. Happy Mother's Day, everybody, and happy Mother's Day to all the mothers out there. Hope you were able to join us, but if not, we totally understand. But we're going to have a fantastic night. It's been a long time since we've had this gentleman on our show, and I'm so excited to welcome him back. It's going to be an awesome evening, so I'm glad you guys have tuned in. So strap yourselves in. This is going to be a fantastic ride, but here we go. But before we get to introductions, we have to thank the people that make this show possible, and that, of course, is our sponsors. And tonight's show is sponsored by Drew Estate. May 12th, mark it down, just 4 short days away. The Freestyle Live Special Edition broadcast on Drew Estate's Facebook page will introduce the newest premium cigar that the company has given to consumers. It's something really exciting. They had announced and released the Freestyle Live Packs out to retailers all over the country weeks ago. There may be still some, a few in the wild, probably not, but if you got your hands on some, you got to taste the new premium cigar before it got formally announced. Really exciting stuff. Don't forget, you got to tune in on May 12th. That's 4 short days away, just because they're going to be giving away some amazing prizes, including a 2022 Jeep Wrangler Sport. Yeah, that's valued at $33,000. They already gave away a Bitcoin. I don't know what that's worth, but I know what $33,000 is, and I know what a Jeep Wrangler is, and that's awesome. So you guys got to tune in. It's going to be a fantastic event, as always. They always bring out the A game, always bring out the party, and guess what? We get to find out what the newest, greatest release from Drew Estate is. So tune in on May 12th. You don't want to miss it. And welcome, everyone. This is our 209th take. So excited to welcome our guest of honor this evening, sponsored by United Cigar. Smoke one today. Start living united. Mr. Tony Bellatto of La Barba and Bellatto Premium Cigars. Tony, welcome back, my friend. How are you doing tonight?
Good. Thanks for having me back, man. It's good to see you.
Oh, it's good to see you, sir. It's good to see you. I'm so excited to have you back. And it's been a while, as we talked about a little bit before the show got started and everything. But a lot's been going on. And a lot of good things, a lot of confusing times, but it's always good to have you back here in the studio and talk cigars, and we'll talk all things fine and beautiful in this life, right?
Oh yes, absolutely.
So we're gonna kick things off here tonight, Tony. And I thought I would, I know that the choice might seem obvious to you, but I wanted to bestow the honor upon you. This is a little tradition I picked up in the last year or so. I have 3 cigars here, and I'm willing to smoke any 3 of them. And I would like you to pick my cigar for me this evening to get started with. So they're very familiar cigars to you, and 2 are very, very personal to you. One is the original La Barba Ricochet in the Robusto size. The other is one made by your good friend, the Long Live the King Mad Mofo in the Super Toro. And then, of course, the 2020 #1 cigar of the year from ELOSOFUMARTAKES, the Grand Robusto Ricochet Crew Mexi Sol. So what am I smoking tonight, my friend?
Well, I can tell you which one of those you can throw away, and that would be
Okay.
the Mad Mofo.
Okay,
you just toss that out.
We'll just go ahead and get rid of that.
Let's start with the Mexi Sol, since I was so lucky to. You're the only person that's ever given me a cigar of the year. So, like I told you when you gave it to me, I'm humbled and very appreciative of that. So let's start there. Let's start off on a high note.
Sounds great. I'm really excited to smoke this with you, Tony. This cigar. I mean, I smoked the Coronita first. That was the first Vitola I smoked to this. But when I lit up this Grand Robusto size, I mean, I immediately loved the Coronita. But I mean, when I first smoked this, it was fantastic. Just absolutely sensational. It was, and I think it's something that Henderson does really well. This Vitola does really well in his factory, like overall, like, but when this blend in particular, just absolutely saying, I love it.
It's very unique. It's a very unique cigar for me, especially with it's got a lot of that, and you and I have talked about it before, that like old world style, but not funky. You know, it's got no like, it doesn't have any must or anything to it, but it's got that old world kind of funk that I like. It reminds me of some old world Bordeaux wines. Like a little bit of minerality, but still like it's still got the sweetness and the strength in the body that to kind of hold up. So yeah, I love that. And then that Coronita is a little. That's like I think that might be the strongest strength wise cigar that we make versus anything. That little Coronita is a very, very strong cigar, but it's very good. It's very balanced.
Yeah, it really captured me, and then I wanted to try it in a bigger Vitola, and this was the next one I gravitated towards, and it just hit me. I was like, this is fantastic. I absolutely loved it, and I just kept smoking it, and that's the main criteria of my cigar of the year is whatever I smoke the most of.
Well, and as Coop said, whatever you send out the most, because he said he
Yes,
called it. He said he called it because all of a sudden he kept getting Mexi Sol Robustos in the mail. And
yeah.
he's like, I know what Bear Cigar of the Year is going to be because of the ones 'cause you like to gift them as much as you like to smoke them.
That's true. That's true. Well, I will say this: he's giving himself. He had it down, but he's giving himself just a little bit of credit because he had it narrowed down to two. Because there was the number two
Okay.
cigar of the year that year. I was also gifting out quite a bit because I really enjoyed that one from Dissident. The Block Lonsdale was fantastic as well, and that was my number two cigar of the year. But I do want to dive into this. But you speaking of like old school, like familiar nostalgia. We're going to talk a lot about nostalgia. I feel like tonight. So I know you do travel a lot, maybe not the last 2 years, but you have traveled a lot in your lifetime and everything. But when you go back home to Ohio, like what's the meal? Like what's the welcome home meal for you?
Sunday sauce, man. Going over to my mom's for Sunday sauce. That's definitely the meal. And I haven't had it in quite some time because my parents moved part-time. They did that the snowbird thing where they got the place in Florida, left me all by myself up here. And then my mom said she's getting great tomatoes in Florida and the sauce is amazing. I go down there for Easter and she didn't even make any.
Oh,
so I've been out. I've been without sauce and meatballs, real sauce and meatballs for all winter. So I'm trying to get over there to get some sauce and meatballs. But that's the come home meal for me for sure.
now was that always the tradition growing up? Was that that really was like the cliche Sunday thing? Like she made that every Sunday, or?
Yeah, and it wasn't always Sunday sauce, but it was always like no matter. And that's kind of like where the whole ethos of La Barba sort of came from, was because I brought that when I was in college. I brought that with me. To kind of slow everybody down every Sunday. It was like all the hustle and bustle during the week, and then to slow everybody down on a Sunday to have a meal together, I think is very important. And I still do. Like I was telling you earlier, my mom decided to go golfing today for Mother's Day. We did Mother's Day on Friday. My parents are both big golfers, but my dad came out to my house today to help me cut down some trees and stuff. And it's just always been like that's when we do our family stuff is on Sunday, whether it's eating. And then I had to order out sauce, which was my dad was not very happy with me because I'd ordered from a restaurant ravioli and meatballs. And he was kind of like, what the hell, what is this? And I'm like, well, I didn't have time to make sauce all day. I was cutting trees down with you. So we had restaurant sauce, which is, it's almost like being in jail.
Is it like Henry Hill or Ray Liotta's character at the end of Goodfellas, where he's like,
So fun fact about that movie, at the end of that movie, because so many stories came from where I live, he picks up a Youngstown Vindicator newspaper when he is put on witness protection, when he says the famous, now I have to eat egg noodles and ketchup. But the Scorsese put the Youngstown Vindicator newspaper in that movie as an homage to all the stories that came from Youngstown that they put in the movie.
oh wow, that's fantastic. Well, that is a small world. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to go back to that for a second. So you said you went to go to, I remember you telling this last time, and I think I misunderstood. So you actually made sauce in college? Like you didn't take it, like you didn't package it up from your mom and bring it with you.
No,
You actually
I made it. Yeah, generally I made it Saturday night, heavily intoxicated, and then it would take me all night till like 5 a.m. to get it done, and then I would put it in the fridge and then reheat it up, or the freezer, because I'd have a bunch of it. I'd make like you know, 10 or 12 giant pots of sauce. By pots, I mean like bowls, and then I'd freeze it, and then every Sunday I'd reheat it up. Very similar to what my mom does today.
That's
But
awesome.
my parents go all out, man. They go hand pick tomatoes. They jar their own tomatoes. My dad has like in their basement, they have like vintages of sauce, and it's very strange.
Vintages.
Yeah, like, well, I'll ask my
Oh,
mom, like, is this a 2021 sauce, a 2020 sauce?
oh
It's
my.
it's
Okay.
it's a big deal.
This is going way deeper than I wanted to, and I love it. This is fan. I did. Well, I guess it keep. That's the whole point of is preserving it and everything. Is just it keeps and everything. I mean,
Right. That's
so
why they preserve them in ball jars and then they date them. I mean, we don't go too far back. It's usually like right around a 3 year swing, because and plus it doesn't last that long.
right. I I I can't tell you what it was. I think it was like a YouTube video or something like that where I saw like this family in New York, and it was like a family, and they're sitting in the alleyway between like two of their brownstones or whatever, and they're all peeling like Roma tomatoes and stuff, and they're all getting ready to
Yep.
make this sauce that's gonna last like the entire family, like the next year or whatever. So I was just it's really cool tradition, and in this one thing. So see, missed opportunity, man. You maybe gotta arm wrestle Justin Andrews for the rights to Sunday Gravy now. So
I know.
oh, uh, well, that's interesting. So, like, if okay, so you were talking about your parents like relocating at least part time down to Florida. Um, but I mean, if I know Ohio's home for you, and I mean, is there a place in this world that you would consider like your second home? I know you travel a lot, so
I mean, it would have to be Miami just because I'm down there so often. That's where our warehouse is. So, I mean, that's that, and it sucks that it's changed so much and it's gotten so bad over by the beach. But like the memories of like going down when Wynwood was down in the Wynwood district, and starting La Barba there, and then like having the office and having my friends there. That's kind of like I'm never uncomfortable when I'm in Miami, which is odd for me to say, but I do really like it there. And I like Charleston, South Carolina. That's my other favorite place.
the food scene in Charleston is like out of this world.
The best shrimp and grits I've ever had in my life was in Charleston. And I
Absolutely.
also and I also like Fort Worth, Texas, of a lot. Oddly enough,
Really?
I do. I hate Dallas.
Well, yeah, me too. I mean, yeah, I live here, so
I like the people in Dallas, but I don't like. What's weird to me is I was like, just driving through Fort Worth, you feel like you're like in Texas proper, but in Dallas, it's just like a cement, like, I don't know. You're just like always on a highway. There's always 100 interchanges, and you never really feel like you're in a neighborhood. I don't know. It's just Dallas has always been weird to me.
yeah, I mean, there's like two reasons for me to go to Dallas: it's to see Jay Davis or to see Brandon up at Renegade, and that's about it. And Brandon's technically in Richardson. He's not even in Dallas, but same difference. But that's like the only reason I would go to Dallas County if I had. But yeah, I had no idea. So where's your like what's your thing? What's your favorite thing to do here in Fort Worth?
Well, I really like Al's Steakhouse. I really like to go on the roof and have a meal and a martini and a cigar. That's like, finding a place like that is like, there's like 5 places in the world where you can do all 3 of those things at the same time. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like,
yeah.
and it's just, and then you just on the rooftop and you're overlooking like downtown Fort Worth. And then I've always just had a good time, like walking the stockyard with it. I like the fact that I can grab a like giant can of beer and walk up and down the street and watch insane people.
Yep.
So that's what I like about Lincoln Road in Miami, but I also like that about the stockyards in Fort Worth, where you just like kind of walk up and down and just watch the craziness that happens in that stockyard area. And the weather, I love the weather there.
Yeah, it's beautiful here. I love downtown Fort Worth. I think it's one of the most underrated downtowns that I've ever seen.
It's a
It's
lot of fun.
Yeah, a lot of fun. You were talking about Wynwood in Miami and everything. I was there recently. We were in town for the Great Smoke a couple months back, and I visited a friend of my wife's. We went to the Salty Donut in Wynwood, and that was fantastic. But yeah, I mean, it's crazy. Like you would go a block, and it's completely different than the next block. Like the people warned me about that, and I was like, okay. And I mean, that was pretty literal. I mean, it was just
Oh yeah.
it's a roller coaster of a neighborhood. They're really trying to redo some areas and stuff. Like,
I got a funny story about where our office was after the factory. When we had an office, like another office in, um, like right at the edge of Wynwood, and there was always like these homeless guys that were outside of the office. And it was kind of like a camp, you know. So we walked out of the office, and I just grabbed lunch. We were going to get coffee or do something, and I had a banana in my hand. And like it was like 2019, you know, I don't have any money on me. I don't have any cash on me because I don't travel with cash because I think, you know, that's asking for trouble. But the guy was like, he came up to me, he's like, "Do you have money for me?" And I'm like, no. I'm like, "I honestly don't have any cash on me, man." And I was like, "But if you're hungry, I got this banana." And I gave it to him. And he just looked at me and he goes, "Fuck this banana." And he threw it into the park. And I was like, I'm like, "That was my banana. Like, if you didn't want it, you could just give it back to me. You didn't have to ruin both of our days with no banana."
geez, man.
Yeah. So I'll never forget that when the guy like fervently resisted my banana offer.
That's oh man, that's crazy. I mean, my wife and I try to do that with the homeless. We give food instead of money,
Yeah.
and I can't recall a poor reaction, let alone that. They might have done it after we left, but I mean,
Yeah. Like really did not want my banana. I
yeah,
don't know why.
clearly, yeah. Yeah, so many other reactions that he could have had. Well, that's great. It's really interesting as we travel and everything, and we find these pockets and stuff. I find myself like whenever I travel to, like, for the most part, like I really want to move to wherever I go. Like I could see myself living there, but then at the same time, like I could never see myself not living in Texas at the same time. So it's always a fun little battle in my head. All
Yeah,
right.
I've had conversations with my friends about that. Like I've had conversations with Rob. He was like, "Why do you still live in like Youngstown?" I'm like, "Because when I live here, I have things to look forward to. Like you live in like Miami Beach, and you know, you go, it's hot every day, and you like go kayaking with your wife in like the mangroves, and you go down to the Keys." I'm like, "What do you do for fun?" I'm like, "You can't do anything. Like you go skiing, I guess,
Right.
but like you have like nothing. Like that's it. Like that's where everybody wants to end up." Um, because of the lifestyle down there. But I always laugh with them about it. Plus, I'm like, you know, my house being the square same footage as your house and being a tenth of the price, you know, is also a lot better. And I'm always
No.
45 minutes away from an airport, no matter what. So that's one thing that like our houses never went up here. We never had like a huge. It's always been the same since I was a kid. Like our house values.
That's crazy. Even with the
I mean,
the
it's gone
last,
up a little bit. It's gone up relative to inflation, but it hasn't gone up like insane.
like the rest of the country.
Right.
Nice. Well, that's good. That's good. Yeah. I my sister went to graduate school in Cleveland, and we went and visited some of the outskirts of, suburbs of that city and everything. And yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful part of the country. I love it. So it's just very green too. I'm not used to that being from West Texas
Yeah.
myself personally. So this was really green to me when I moved over here to the DFW area, and then got to visit places like Ohio. And I was like, oh wow, yeah, that's what a forest is. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well,
It's been really messing with my allergies so far. It like we had a late bloom because it was like we had a couple freezes, and like once stuff started growing, my allergies in the past 2 weeks have just been atrocious. And I never get that, but they've been so bad. I don't know why.
same thing happened with us. Like, I mean, we moved to this area. I mean, it's not that far from where we were living, but there's more woods and everything on our property now and everything, and just all the leaves and stuff like that. And like you said, the late bloom, and yeah, it's just been crazy. It's just been crazy. So, all right. Well, let's hop into tonight's major point. We've already kind of talked a little bit about it, but tonight's major point is brought to you by the people. Yes, cigar people, the people who know everything about a lifetime of service. Protocol Cigars is more than just pool parties and good times. Well, maybe it is. But behind the fun is a motivation for service, a motivation for giving back. For the regional Protocol Blue to the latest release in the Lawman series, Bass Reeves, Protocol has always been about honor, passion, and yes, the people. It's what their life's work has been and always will be about. Power of the P, Protocol, Cigars. So tonight's major point, and is actually going to be about everything that's kind of gone on with you, Tony, in the last 18 months or so. But we do kind of have to revisit the topic of tonight's cigar that I'm smoking. Are you smoking tonight?
I am. I'm smoking an Antique Line 2012.
Awesome. Well, I'm smoking as we talked about at the top of the show, I'm smoking the Gran Robusto of the La Barba Ricochet Cru Mexi Sol. So #1 cigar of the year for 2020 for ELOSOFUMARTAKES. Just like we talked about, just really gravitated toward it. Now we're talking a little bit about the flavor components of it at the very top of the show and everything, but Tony, when this is a very unique cigar in its makeup. Starting with the wrapper, you hear all the time, like with your original Ricochet, like San Andreas Maduro, right? Maduro is like the when you think about Mexican tobacco, that's what people think of. But this is a sun-grown wrapper from Mexico. Now, when you and Henderson were kind of tweaking with this particular wrapper and everything, what about it with the wrapper was what really like captured you? Like, man, I really want that for one of my projects.
I think it's that wrapper adds that we were talking about earlier, is that old school minerality component to it. It wasn't that I set out to start that cigar with that wrapper. That cigar ended up with that wrapper because of just like all the trial and error that we've done. And we were like, let's try this. Let's just try to put this, on top of the cigar and see what happens. And we tasted it. We were like, this is it.
So
I think it adds the structure, and I think it adds the minerality, and I think it adds the body to the whole blend.
So the coincidence of the two Mexican leaves was just, that's all it was just coincidence.
Yeah, it was a happy accident. Yeah. Serendipitous, if you will.
So, and I know we're going to be talking about the next release in the Ricochet line here in just a moment, but what's like when you were coming up with the second release in this Ricochet line, what gap or what were you going for necessarily? Were you going for something exactly what it came out to, like this medium bodied cigar that wasn't as heavy handed and robust as the original? Or did you want something even lighter, or what were you kind of going for?
So the whole premise of Ricochet is like really getting back to my roots in wine, as we've discussed them. So I wanted to have that as the central like overarch, right, between all the different releases with Ricochet. But I wanted to have a breadth of cigars that encapsulated each one of the wrappers that we ended up using. That Mexi Sol was always going to be a Habano wrapper. I didn't know where that wrapper was going to come from, whether it was Ecuador, whether Mexico, Dominican Republic. It just so happened that we found that wrapper that completed the puzzle of that specific cigar, because that one's geared more towards Bordeaux. Obviously, the Primitivo. It's funny because the Primitivo thing happened, and it kind of opened my mind to what like a series of cigars could be, because it was just going to be the Primitivo release, because that cigar was designed for like Italian Zinfandel or the red Zinfandel wine. But I said, once I had the trademark thing, I was like, why don't I just open up the door to being able to do a couple different releases with that same mindset? And that's how that kind of the Ricochet series evolved, I guess, from the orange to the blue, and now the Connecticut that's coming.
So I've, we've talked about it being referenced to Bordeaux and everything, and I know you have this reverence for it, particularly when you're eating steak. I know that too. I know that Bordeaux is like your go-to. But so I mean, this is always the stupid question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is it do you find yourself gravitating? I won't say your favorite. Do you find yourself gravitating more towards this blend than any of the other blends in the La Barba because of its affinity with Bordeaux? Or
I do. I mean, I think that there's for me, there's like a time of day thing with cigars, like I
Mhm.
like to, um, like especially like I love the Purple Robusto is like my favorite cigar of all time. Um, the from me anyway, um, or us, I should say. So I like to start my day off with that, and I usually like to finish my days with those. Um, Especially I like the torpedo if I'm like at a fire or something after dinner. If it's like a nice cool evening, I'll smoke the longer torpedo. I think that's a great Vitola. I like to smoke the Coronita after dinner. Um, with I'll usually have it with a sweet dessert wine. If you haven't had it yet, you should try it. Like an ice wine or like a Tokai or a Sauterne is when I like to have that. Um, the little Coronita. It's very enjoyable then for me. Um, I don't know. I don't really have a go-to. I have like because I'm super OCD. So I have like a go-to with a go-to. Like if I'm doing this, then I'm doing that. And
Sure.
that's the way I kind of have my brain work. Um, I have like a cigar for everything, which is odd to say, but
No, I get that too because I'm pretty. I don't think I'm OCD, but I definitely gravitate like you said, time of day, time and place. I gravitate towards a normal cigar. And like, so it's funny, like during COVID and everything, I was doing a lot of walks. I would walk in the evening. My 2-year-old was a lot younger then, so I'd just push him in the stroller, and so I'd go on these evening walks, or I would do these morning walks and stuff. This just became that accompaniment to it, and just the like the minerality that we talked about and that we love so much in this particular blend, the outdoors, it just melded really well together, and it was just a beautiful combination. But it's also the cigar that I can sit here and have a great conversation with, and just really enjoy. Like I said, this as unique as this blend is, it really hits for me. I've enjoyed it from the very beginning, and it's become, like Coop and I revisited like some of our like our staples of our humidors, like cigars that we just always have on hand. And and I was funny, I was like, I look back at all the cigars that I've given accolades to, and it's a short list because I haven't been doing this for too long. But this and the Espinosa Habano are probably the ones that I will smoke, at least a couple a week.
well, I appreciate being in that rotation.
Yeah, it's just perfect. It hits me fantastic. So congratulations again, Tony, to making a fine cigar and being
Thank
named
you. My award is right behind me here in my office. So
Oh, fantastic. That sounds like
yes, yeah.
nice. But 2022 has been a big year for you guys as you announced a really amazing project. The Bellatto Premium Cigar brand or company is now in full effect. Uh,
Mhm.
so you are partnering with your father, who is celebrating his 50th year in the business.
Yes, his 50th year in the business, 1972 is when he started in this crazy mixed up world.
So
1972.
1972. But this is something that I think I knew, but it was kind of in the back of my head. It wasn't like if someone had put me on the spot with it, I don't think I would have been able to say it until I kind of relearned it again just a little while ago. But you're third generation. So your dad started 50 years ago, but even before that, it was your grandfather who started in the tobacco industry.
Yeah, he started with a book and news stand. He actually it was a school supply store that he sold. My grandpa was a book. He was a bookie, and he also delivered books and magazines. And he would go do what we call it around here, the bug. I don't know if you guys ever had it out west. It was, or the number basically. And what that was they'd pick a horse race for the day, and then they would go. It was basically the precursor to the, once the state figured out what everybody was doing, they created the thing called the lottery. But prior to having the lottery, it was called the bug. And it was basically like, you'd write down like, 479, and then you would hand it to the bookie with your money. And then the bookie would go either give it to another bookie, or they would take it to the racetrack and bet your money. And then if you, if you lost, you lost, but if you won, they took 10% or the big, right? But the lady that owned the store owed my grandpa quite a bit of money, and she lived upstairs, and it was kind of like he wanted to have his own business. So he kind of said to her, like, I'll forgive your debt if you give me the business and the building, but I'll let you live upstairs for free for the rest of your life, because she lived in an apartment upstairs. So that's how he kind of like very Italian way to obtain a business. But I guess like in the 60s, that was all right. But then, yeah, so then my
Does
dad,
she still live there? I mean, just stop chat. I don't know how old she is.
No, she's, yeah, my grandfather would be 95 or 96 or something like that. She was older. She was older than him. She was
older than him.
When he would, yeah.
But she lived there until the day she died.
Yeah, a funny story about that is her son was like a drug addict and a thief, and one day he tunneled through. My grandpa was in the back office, and the kid tunneled through his bedroom, dug through his bedroom into my grandpa's office while my grandpa was still there after he thought he had left. And the kid falls through the ceiling and is standing there face to face with my grandpa. And neither of them really know what to do. So my grandpa just started chasing him. They ran around the block. My grandpa finally caught him, and like it was this huge deal. He put a steel plate up in the ceiling so the kid couldn't dig through anymore.
Oh my.
Yeah, it's funny. And then and the basement, so the cigars used to be kept in the basement, and because of where the store was and how old the building was, there was always 6 to 8 inches of water on the floor, just because of like, I don't know how old it was, or I don't know why there was always water on the floor. So I remember as a kid, I was probably, I don't know, 10 years old when I first started making allowance money, which was basically like forced child labor. So my dad would take me to the store on Mondays is when he would get his Fuente shipment in. And back then when he would get a Fuente shipment in, it would be like 80 master cases of Fuente. So I'm talking about like 3 UPS trucks full of just Fuente. So I'd have to go, and I'd have like my rain boots on and a price gun, and I would be on a ladder, and I would just go all the way down and just sticker all the different. And then by the time I was 12 or 13 years old, I already knew what like 858s were. I knew what wrapper they were. I already knew double chateaus. I knew Macanudo. I knew all the wrappers and and I didn't even smoked a cigar yet, but I just knew it because from having to work and like listening to them talk about things, and
breaking down all the shipments and stuff.
Yeah, child labor.
So I mean, you were a cigar geek before there were cigar geeks.
Yeah, I guess so. I first started smoking cigars when my dad would get back, and this is very bad. So just pretend that I was 18. But my dad would get back from the trade show, and I would take the cigars. He would leave the bag that he would get in his office, and I would sneak in there and take cigars and smoke them in my fort. And then what I really got, it was really funny because I used to my dad wasn't a cigarette smoker, and unfortunately that's how I started smoking cigarettes. Was I would take the Nat, I knew he would never miss them, so I took the Nat Sherman Fantasia cigarettes, and then everybody used to make fun of me because I would smoke like pink and gold cigarettes.
I remember when I started in retail, and my brother's a cigarette smoker too. He'll always share a cigar with me when I want to, but he was a cigarette smoker for the longest time, and still kind of is off and on. But yeah, he dug. It's again, small world. He dug the Fantasias. He loved it. Like I tried getting him like to try other ones too, and he's like, "No, man, just bring me the Fantasias." I'm like, "You really like him?" He's like, "Yeah, dude, they're too cool. They're too cool." I'm like,
That's
"Cool,
funny.
man. To each his own." That's
Yep.
I never got into the cigarette thing. I've never, believe it or not, I've never had one.
Oh, we were talking. Here's what happened, and I will say, um, here's what happened for me. I saw we were talking about Goodfellas earlier. That's one movie that I saw when Robert De Niro, after he tells Morty that if he wants his money, he's going to have to do so. I can't remember the exact line, but Morty comes in and he's like kind of shaking De Niro, and he's like, "Give me my money, I need my money." And then the camera like pans away, and it's like it's Robert De Niro sitting there, and he's smoking this cigarette, and the Sunshine of Your Love song, but the song
Yeah,
plays, and he like takes a drag of the cigarette and like lifts one eyebrow, and you could tell like what he was planning while he was smoking that. And I saw that and I was like, that is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life. And then from then on, I wanted to smoke cigarettes. And then the other one that got me was John Travolta in the movie Broken Arrow. Remember, he used to smoke his
yes,
cigarette and he would take his
yes.
fingers off like that.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and it was just this very over the top. Yeah, no,
Yep.
and I remember I remember watching Broken Arrow for the first time, and when he puts the cigarette out in front of, I guess, the general, when they're at the
Oh
very
yeah.
beginning of it with his hands, I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And my dad used to smoke cigarettes too, and I asked him, I was like, hey, have you ever done that? And he was like, what, you mean this? And he put it, I was like, oh my, I was like, how did you do that? Just thought it was like some superpower or something. But yeah, so someone asked me that too, and I attribute to it, it's got to be to a film or TV or something. Like someone asked me, like when did I want to start smoking cigars or whatever. I was like, I knew on my 18th birthday that's what I wanted, was a cigar. I didn't want a cigar, I wanted a cigar. And it was all about, it started about the age of 10, 11, 12, something. I must have seen something. It had, because I've watched so many films growing up. And even to this day, it's like still one of my things. And it had to have been something, where I was just like, oh, that's it. But that's cool that you can actually pinpoint it to that one De Niro scene. That's crazy.
Still, it gives me goosebumps when I watch it still.
That's awesome. So so again, 50 years in the business for your dad. You guys you're launching Bellatto premium cigars. And so I think the questions on everyone's mind, and I asked you this too when I texted you about it. I was like, what does this mean? Like, what does this all mean? Is this something? Is La Barba going away, or is this?
Oh no, no. La Barba's staying exactly the way it is. I'll keep doing. I won't. La Barba releases are very slow. As you know, I've only had 4 different cigars over 10 years. So I'm going to continue working on La Barba stuff, and I'm not taking my seat away from that table at all. Nor am I changing anything with the way that La Barba works. In fact, I'm adding a line to La Barba here shortly, Ricochet, Connecticut. And then it's also La Barba's 10th anniversary this year.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm working on a 10th anniversary cigar for that as well. And then La Barba is going to keep on keeping. Nothing's going to change with that. The Bellatto cigar thing is just, back when I started La Barba, my dad thought I was nuts, and didn't think it would make it as far as it did. But for one, he finally told me he was like proud of me, and I was like, whoa, that's weird. And then I was like, well, why don't we do something together? Outside of, because I have partners with La Barba when we started, and I said, why don't we just do something together? And he said, let's do it. He was finally ready to do it. And by ready to do it, he's just like my taste tester kind of guy. He'll get a few trips at DR and that, but the cigars are in honor of him and in his tenure in the business. as well as an honor to his relationships in the business and the people that he's helped along the years. So I'm not adding more work for him. he's well deserving of his retirement. So I'm not going to like be putting him on the road or anything like that. But I wanted to do something with him that he could kind of, he deserves a legacy and a footprint in this business. And I think that this is the way that we do it.
I mean, that had to be like you said it was weird, but I mean, that had to be just such a fulfilling moment, knowing what your father's life's work, and then you to, kind of step off of that a little bit with La Barba, him telling you it's crazy at first, and then all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, but him telling you.
Yeah, I mean, but my dad's the kind of guy. I mean, he's a lot of people love him. He's a cartoon character, but he's also the kind of guy that like, if I got a B, why wasn't it an A? And it was now that I'm, almost 40, I realized that was for the best, right? Even though it like irritated me that he was never like, you did a great job, or this was amazing, or whatever. He never really like gave me compliments like that. But it was all to push me harder, I think, to always make sure that he was like, he knew he was proud of me, but he always knew he couldn't like tell me. Mm-hmm. And then for him to finally do it, I think was a big step and a big development in our relationship as business partners and father and son.
Do you think there's something also to it as well? I mean, here's again, second generation, but entrepreneur. I mean, he obviously took it in a completely different direction and expanded it upon what your grandfather did. Because he took it over pretty much right away. Because I think your grandfather started in the 60s, right? And your dad started in 72. So it wasn't like that far of a gap.
Yeah, he worked. My dad worked at my grandpa's store for, I think, 5 years, 6 years. And then he went and opened his, something like that. But he opened his first one when he was 19, I think, years old.
So, I mean, obviously the entrepreneurial spirit really bit you.
Yes.
I mean, because you have several business ventures, right? I mean, you still have the retail locations.
Yep.
2 cigar things now, coffee. Yeah. Still waiting for the wine, Tony. I'm just waiting. One of these days.
It'll get there.
I know.
Just gotta remember. I just keep forgetting.
No. Oh, you have no. I'm sorry. Wow, I really stepped out. No, so you have a wine? That's what
I have a cava. I thought I remember telling you that I was going to send you a couple bottles of it.
Oh my gosh, no.
Yeah, I thought I did. I'm almost 100% positive I told you.
Oh God, no, man, I totally needled you there, and I didn't even mean to. No, I wasn't even poking the bear. No pun intended. Oh man.
It's all good.
Yeah. Man, I would love to try. Yeah, no, I love the coffee. You did send me some coffee. I love that. That was fantastic. That was absolutely fantastic.
Take care of my people.
So, but I mean, the entrepreneurial spirit that obviously bit you and everything, that had to be something that he was probably pretty proud of early on. Maybe not say, they maybe didn't verbalize it, but
yeah. And I'm a little bit more risky than he is. So I think that kind of made him nervous, especially when I went out with La Barba and a couple different things that we've done that, he was kind of like, I don't know. He's a little bit more conservative than I am. And I'm a little bit more like, screw it. We'll pay for it when we have to, kind of, or they'll take it away. I don't know.
Well, speaking of conservative, I mean, this is a man of particular taste, your father, right? So
yeah,
one of my favorite stories, because it's so there's a lot of stories that get told and retold in this industry, right? And they have a purpose, and I'm not necessarily calling anyone out, and I'm not necessarily saying it's a knock, but it's for it's for ceremony, right? There's some ceremony to retelling of the story. Your story is the one that I'm about to talk about is not like that. And it's something I've heard you say it. You said it to me in our first interview. I've heard you say it in a couple of other spots. And I love, because we were talking about your Sunday sauce, right?
Yeah.
And I have those memories of my childhood too. Like I can still smell my grandmother's cooking. And so like when I taste certain flavors in cigars, it immediately takes me back to my grandmother's kitchen and things like that. And you talking about every night when your father would come home after a long day working and you smelling the 858, the Cameroon tobacco specifically,
Yeah.
and how you can pick that out in a room. If someone's smoking a Don Carlos or someone's smoking an 858, you know exactly what it is.
Right.
It all goes back to your dad. That that's one of those stories to me that just like, I don't know, it rings true to me emotionally and personally. Um, and that's something that you guys are going to be doing together with this, right? There's going to be a Cameroon, hopefully.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it. Yeah. It's just a question of whether Cameroon is very, 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 very expensive.
Yes, very hard to source.
So I'm working on it. So I don't know when, but it will be an addition. So addition is going to be a line that's going to be the main core line of the Bellatto premium cigar lineup, and the goal is to do pretty much everything to its original specs. So for example, like the Corojo, if we do Corojo, which I'm not sure if we're going to do one yet or not, but if we do one, it'll be non-hybridized Cuban Corojo, real Connecticut broadleaf, real African Cameroon. So that's kind of the goal with the Edition project, is to do those true to form, non-hybridized country of origin wrappers
Okay.
which I grew up with, and now are through the roof expensive. But we'll see. So gonna pull all the strings we can to get the good tobaccos.
So this is I'm assuming you guys are formally launching at the trade show later this summer.
Barring no shipping delays, but yes.
Well, yeah, we all know
But
the,
yeah, I mean, we'll be
logistical nightmare in the cigar industry right now is awful, and it's not even the cigars; it's it's like boxes and labels and
everything.
stuff.
I mean, I will be selling air at the trade show if not anything else.
Just nice little bottles, mason jars,
Yeah.
Instead of Sunday sauce, you'll just be selling the bottles of air, jars of air. Well, that's exciting. Will your father be at the trade show this year?
No. No. He's a man of many mysteries. July, he doesn't like he said he's done with them. So we'll see. I mean, I'm going to try to get him back, but we'll see. He said he's done though.
Well, it would be a hoot just to be able to shake his hand. I'd love it, man. It would be an honor.
I do want to get him out to some places though, so I'll see if he'll do some traveling with me. I just know he's not a Vegas guy. He's a big golfer, and he doesn't really like see the appeal of Vegas. And he knows that like me and all of our managers could pretty much handle what he needs to do. So very similar to TP, is I'll have him on like FaceTime, and we'll have a meeting with just Gino next to me on FaceTime.
There you go. Well, tell him, hey, listen, if he doesn't want to go to Vegas, we've got great steak here in Texas, and we've got great golf courses, and he doesn't have to deal with the whole hullabaloo of Vegas. It's perfect.
I kept telling him how he's got to come to Fort Worth because he's never been there. So I know that because he's never been there, he's going to start to itch to want to go there. So I'm going to keep planting that seed so we can come down to Fort Worth and he can check out all the cool stuff.
Fantastic. That'd be great. So starting with like just the logo itself. When I first saw it, even before I knew the backstory of the 50 years of your dad being in the business and him starting in the 70s, right? It kind of gave off this 70. It's a very simplistic, script, but it gave off a very 70s vibe for me. Was that intentional, or am I just connecting the dots here?
No, you're completely correct. And I'm a big fan of, and I know it's earlier than the 70s, but I'm a big fan of mid-century architecture and Bauhaus design and the whole Bauhaus art movement. And that design is kind of pulled from all of that. And then you can add in like the print designs of the 70s and things like that I looked at before we finalized the design. So it was kind of like to give you that like mid-century, almost deco, city kind of vibe, but also with a kind of a modern twist to it.
Now we've seen the full text. I've seen the full text of your profile pic on Facebook. I guess is the anagram. Is that
It's a monogram, yeah.
Anagram,
Yep.
monogram, excuse me. And that's of the new company as well, correct?
Yeah, so that'll just be, that's like, I guess you would call it the logo. That'd be the logo part of the actual design. So that'll be on like the little parts of the boxes and different places, almost like a stamp.
So in a perfect world, I know logistics being just the nightmare that it is and everything. I mean, what's the plan to launch? Are you planning to launch 1 line, 3 lines? Like what's the intention?
So depending on when it starts coming is going to kind of depend on when I'm going to start selling and shipping. But the first line that's coming, I know for sure, is Knock Around, and that is going to be a $7 to $9 Robusto Toro 660 20 count box. That's going to be like our entry level, like everyday cigar, Habano wrapper, made in DR, just like a great, literally like everyday dog walker kind of cigar. So there's going to be three wrappers in that. I have a Connecticut, a Habano, and a Maduro in that. Obviously Ecuador, Connecticut, Ecuador Habano, and San Andres Maduro. And then the addition, that should be right behind it. Those are going to be more of the high end ones. So the first one for that is Brazilian Arapiraca, I believe.
Oh,
it's going to be the first one. So I'm not that, if my timing's right, I have to relook at my books and see where everything is at, like in the spinning world of cigars right now. But that's, I think, the first one.
That's the first time you've worked with that, right?
Yeah, but I've smoked it a lot.
That's really
because
cool.
Because of Robert, because he, like, Eastern Standard's a hybrid Arapiraca.
Right.
This one is going to be dark, a little bit darker.
Yeah, I meant with the La Barba, what your stuff, like your stuff.
Oh yeah. Yep.
That's really exciting. That's really exciting. So it's gonna span the breadth. You talk about these nice moderately priced cigars, and then you're talking about some up, I guess not upper echelon, but higher ultra premium, quote unquote.
Yeah, and that's because the tobaccos we're getting are just incredible for the edition line, are just incredible, and they just, it just costs more to make these cigars now because of the rarity and of the wrapper. Once you have, once a 10-year-old wrapper's gone, it's gone.
Right.
You can't make a new 10-year-old wrapper. So finding enough of it and finding it in the right places and finding it from the right people is the difficult part, and that unfortunately puts a higher price tag on a lot of things.
So will they be limited production or limited edition, or are they?
No, they're regular production until I run out of tobacco. So whatever comes first. So if I have enough to make them and have them all year round, then I will. But there might be a point where I run out of the tobaccos, and it'd be more of like a back order situation. Like they're going to be coming back again.
Right.
But it all depends on. It's not a limited project, and it's not the edition is not limited in any means. It's just if I run out, then I'm done for basically the year. So I guess that makes them a limit. I don't know. What does that make it?
I would say limited production, like regular production, just but in limited quantities. Kind of like the Colorado Oscuro from La Flor Dominicana. It's released twice a year. Before Oliva took the Milenio Maduro, was an annual release, of limited production, but now they've made it regular production where it's available year round. So I would say like just more,
it honestly depends.
Conservative production.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on the demand. If there's a huge demand for it and it goes all at once, then it goes all at once.
Well, that's really exciting. And so I mean, I'm assuming you've worked with, like, and I've heard this too, but I'm assuming you've like worked on these blends before, and for whatever reason, you just didn't feel like. Let's expand on that, because I've heard you say this, like they just didn't fit in the La Barba family, like it just didn't work.
Right.
What does one mean by? Because you're not the only person to ever say that when they're talking about placing a blend in this particular brand. If a company has several, what is that? I'm sure everyone has their own different answer, but what does that mean to you?
So, I mean, for me, the vision with La Barba was always kind of the KISS rule, is to keep it simple, stupid rule, you know? And I wanted to make La Barba's definitely made for my palate, but it's also my palate for everyone else's. And I think that, you know, some of these blends just didn't fit into that category where, you know, I smoke this and I think everyone's going to like it. So these are more, I guess, things that you wouldn't normally find within a box of a brand like that, if that makes any sense. So a brand that's kind of made like by the people for the people, and now this is like kind of graduating and kind of saying, okay, like where, like what are these like wrappers that we can use that wouldn't really fit mass market, or what are these different blends we can use that really wouldn't fit the mass market, and that kind of aspect. Wouldn't, some of them wouldn't really generally fit into the La Barba quote unquote box. In addition to that, you know, I've always tried to keep La Barba products around that $10 price range. So some of the stuff that's coming out wouldn't fit in that same $10 price range, and some of the stuff on the higher end is going to be above that $10 price point. So it's sort of like there was really no home for them, and a lot of these like blends, and they hadn't even been completed because I knew off the bat that there was no home for them. So now that I'm 10 years into this, I have a little bit more experience and say, okay, we need to tone this down, we need to pull this up and revisit some of those things that we had in the past, especially some cigars that my dad was with me when we blended. So I think that's what I mean by fit inside the category of the idea of La Barba.
Okay. So just to take a step back for a second, because we didn't really talk too much about it, but the newest release, the La Barba Ricochet Connecticut. This will be your first Connecticut that you've released. And I mean, that also has to be kind of special too, because that was, you know, when during the heyday and obviously through the boom, you know, when you were helping your dad out and everything, that's what you saw a lot of and everything. So that has to be pretty nostalgic.
I mean, Ashton was like the, you know, my dad and Manny Ferrara were, I wouldn't say good friends, I would say great friends. You know, Manny used to basically sleep on our couch. I remember Manny would walk into a steakhouse in any city with an entire box of Ashtons, and everybody in the entire restaurant got a cigar from him. That's the kind of guy he was. And that's how I was raised in this business. And that's how this business has been to me. And that's what I think about it as a whole, is living those experiences. And the stories I have are way too many and boring. But yeah, the Connecticut is kind of, and then originally when I did a Connecticut for my dad, when we were in DR blending purple, because we had smoked Lajero all day, and he was like, I just want something to smoke with my coffee in the morning that's not going to make me throw up at 9, you know. So we did the Siempre thing, which was like just a private release. It was kind of just for him. So this is the Ricochet Connecticut is like expounded on that, and that kind of like, again, closes the current box that the La Barba portfolio has until we decide to open it back up and revisit some things.
That's right. I remember hearing about the Siempre. Was that a store exclusive for y'all? Or
pretty much. I mean, it didn't start out to be. It's just that nobody tied it to La Barba, so everybody was kind of confused by what the hell it was. So it was available for sale at the trade show, but like no one bought it. And then nobody really knew what it was. So I kind of just kept it as like it's basically my dad's cigar. That's kind of how it's been. Anything that he really likes. And that's kind of where the Bellatto cigar thing came from, is like, I would just put like if I found something really good at Henderson's, that I knew my dad would really like, I still had, all these cigar rings from Siempre that were sitting there. So if Henderson say had like 500 or 600 bundles of something, I would just be like, throw the Siempre band on him and send him to the shop for my dad. And then that's what he would, because there's Siempre box press torpedoes that I have. There's Siempre Maduro box press torpedoes that I have.
Oh, wow.
Siempre Connecticut box press torpedoes that I have. So just stuff like that was random, that was just really good, that I was like, my dad will like this. I'll just put it in the shop. I'll send it back to him at the shop and he'll smoke on it. Tell me what he thinks.
So Henderson has obviously been a great partner for you and blended some, some amazing cigars with you and for you. I mean, is that the plan to keep Bellatto there, or just will you be expanding to other factories as well potentially, or?
So there's a lot of moving parts now with the Bellatto stuff. My dad's reaching out to some of his old, some of his lifelong friends to see, what we can get done in some of those factories. But we are at a point at our factory with Henderson that we cannot expand production in that specific factory. However, Henderson's father kept our original factory as sort of like so Henderson's dad's technically retired, but he still loves making cigars. So we still have our old factory where Henderson's dad and his buddies make stuff for them and their friends. And it's literally like to keep dad out of the office. And the last time I was down there was actually the first we did a very small run of a Bellatto edition, because he had and this is where the whole thing was born kind of. So he had it's a Connecticut Desflorado, and he had like 700 bundles of it. Him and Eladio Diaz pulled the flowers off the Connecticut shades in this field in DR. They pulled the flowers off of like, I don't know, a couple acres, because usually the flowers kept on to get that shade color. It's the only tobacco that they leave the flowers on. Well, they decided to pop the flowers off. So Desflorado means without flower.
Right.
And they fermented this wrapper for like 7 years. When I went down there the last time, I was at William's house and he gave me one, and I was like, what is this? And he's like, told me the story. And I was like, well, can I buy them off of you? And he was like, how many? And I was like, I want them all. And he didn't want to sell them to me at first because that's how much he likes them. And the trick with Henderson's dad is Johnny Walker Black and Sprite. So I got him Johnny Walker Black and spread it up enough for him to let me sell about 3/4 of what he had in that factory to me. So that was kind of like, the fun story behind that. I got his dad drunk enough to agree to sell me these cigars I really liked, but those were for my dad because I knew he would love them. And so then when we went back to the drawing board, I kind of said, okay, well, I wonder if William's dad will reopen the doors to this factory, because we're, kind of at our max capacity between La Barba and Caldwell at Henderson's, our bigger factory in Hochi's place. So Henderson and William are making some of the Bellatto stuff, but at the smaller factory where William's kind of in control of what goes on, even though Henderson is, you could walk there from the other. So it's basically the same factory, just different building.
Oh, God. Okay. Okay. Interesting. So there's even a correlation there. So it's you and your dad, and then him and his father kind of teaming up.
And that's when, when Rob introduced me to them in, 2014, when I made Purple, that was something that was really attractive to me, was that Henderson was a young kid in the cigar business, trying to making great products and working with his dad. And those were like the check marks when Rob introduced me to him that said that this kid can make a really good cigar for you. So those all like checked off my checklist things that I was looking for a partner with a factory.
What he's done in his young career has just been outstanding, and his blending style just hits my palate, like everything, like the the Queen's Pearls, the Royal Return Queen's Pearls Robusto was
Those
my,
cigars are amazing.
yeah, was in my top 5 this past year. Like, it was fantastic.
Yeah.
It is fantastic. It's a fantastic cigar. I love it. And he seems to really blend for my palate. I know you told me to throw it away, but the year that, your cigar won number 1, he actually had 3 cigars in my top 10.
That Mad Mofo is very, very, very good. So
Yeah, it was one of them. And then Matt's Farce Maduro was the other. And yeah, what he does with tobacco just really hits my palate. And obviously those are 3 very different cigars too. So that's the breadth of talent that he's got.
No, he's special. And I was just busting your chops about throwing the cigar away.
Oh, I know.
The cigar's too good to throw away. Just take the band off of it and don't let Rob know that you smoked it or liked it. Those are the 2.
Yeah, I mean, it wouldn't be an interaction with either you or Robert without you guys giving each other shit. So
Exactly.
But speaking of Rob, that's interesting. Kind of nice transition here is, one of the projects that you guys really, sunk your teeth into, and while it existed prior to COVID, you guys really dove in with the Lost and Found project. And, we're going to talk about some of the negative inclinations with it, but at its heart, what the charitable aspect of it and what you guys were doing with this project, really, I think like we were talking about being cigar nerds. I mean, it really captivated cigar nerddom in its best. I mean, you were able to find these really, really, really limited cigars and source them and bring them to the consumer, and they would have been lost to history or to nothing and everything. But why we'll talk about the charity aspect in a second, but why did y'all want to do that? Like, why, like, what was the kind of the genesis of that?
Of all of Lost and Found?
Yeah, just the idea of like, hey, these are like, there's like 25 of these cigars or 250 of these cigars, like, and they're fantastic.
You hit the nail on the head. It's cigar nerddom for us at our finest. I mean, it started with Rob like freaking out in factories, like FaceTiming me like, dude, this cigar there's like 100 of these, and like he would get home and send me 5 of them, and I'd be like, what is that? And he'd be like, dude, that, like, we would totally, and we still do to this day, when he sends me a bag of stuff, he calls me the day it comes in. He goes, go home right now and light the cigar. I leave my shop, I go right home, I sit on my patio, or I sit here, I smoke it while I'm on the phone with him, FaceTime, and I'm like, dude, this is fire. And he's like, and it's happened every single time. And that's exactly where it got started. And I was like, and we were talking, I'm like, dude, other people need to have this experience like we have too. That's the heart of Lost and Found. That's where it got started, was we found this really cool shit that we really love, legitimately love, and we want to share it with everyone. And if we can do it at the most reasonable price we can, then it should be a project that everybody should be able to get their hands on. We had no idea what the impact was going to be. We had no idea what it was going to do. We just thought a couple of people in a couple of places that we were friends with would smoke them and like them and want more of them. And then all of a sudden, like, I remember in 2013, somebody sent me a screenshot of a pepper cream soda that was like on a secondary website for $75 a cigar. And I was like, that's not what the idea of the project was. The idea of the project was everybody could smoke these things. They're not supposed to be these rare, like so rare that you would pay $75 for them on an auction site or whatever. But we had no idea what was going to happen in the next 10 years when we started that. And we had no idea we would be where we're at right now with it. And we had no idea that we would be, that we would feed 50,000 people over Thanksgiving. We had no idea like where any of this was going. And the whole time we were doing it, we were literally going by the seat of our pants, trying to figure out what the impact, what positive impact we could have on everybody and everything that this project touches. And I think that, through different ways, it's a natural story that kind of gets thrown here or there, and I know where it started, and that's why I'm proud of it.
No, I mean, you're right, Tony. I mean, it's incredible what you all were able to do, or still are able to do, with this project, and at such a small scale. And the thing that I really like about it, is it's incredibly honest. Like there's, we were talking about limited production and production earlier, right?
Yep.
And so many people throw that word limited edition on. If you look at, so this is the thing I still crack up about. If you buy a box of Hoya de Monterey Excaliburs right now, which you can do in most shops in North America, and probably a couple of yours, it says limited edition on the box. Still does. Same cigar. I love it. I'm not knocking it. It's some of the same great cigars. It's one of the old classics that I still go to all the time, man. It's fantastic. But it still says limited edition. And I think that word gets thrown around a lot, way too much in this industry. And then all of a sudden it becomes regular production or whatever. It's like a testing of the waters, right? For the most thing. This isn't that. Like, you guys have been very upfront and honest about it, which is what I really appreciate about what these are. Like, hey, this is truly one and done, because these are these rare gems that we've just found, literally.
Yeah, I mean, I have like one of the antique line boxes I have in here is one of one, and like I don't even know why we went through the pain of, because it was coming to me, so I don't even know why we went through the pomp and circumstance of putting it in box and putting a band on it and doing all this stuff. Like, because I'm down there with Rob doing it, and I'm like, I go, why are we doing this? Because I'm just taking this box home with me. But we went through the whole pomp and circumstance, and it's sitting right back there. It's one of one. It was literally, I think there was 30 cigars. Rob and I smoked the other ones, and I think 2 or 3 were broken. And like we just had enough for one box. And they're like this super weird size. They're like, I don't want to get up, but they're like long, they're like longer Lonsdales. They're like 7 by 44, 7.5 by 44 or something.
Like,
I have no idea.
Too fat to be a Lancero.
Yeah, and I have no idea what they were and I have no idea where they came from, but I know what I think the wrappers, I don't know. I don't even know. It's on the box. I can't remember, but they were amazing. And we went through the whole pomp and circumstance of making one box of them. And I have one of one. Like, I didn't even sell it to anybody. And I'm not even going to open it.
That's awesome. And so COVID turns its ugly head 2 years ago, and then you guys really upped this charity component. And I remember you talking about your conversation with Rob about this. It was very, rushed is the wrong word, but it was very aggressive. Like, hey, we've been talking about this, and now we're going to do it.
Ever since like Lost and Found became a thing, we kind of started to we felt bad because we never wanted it to be something that we made money off of. It was never supposed to be that project. It was supposed to be a fun project that like made a difference. And from the beginning, we said, if this ever does anything, like, we're going to create a charitable component around it. And we just hadn't had it figured out. And then Rob called me and said, I have it figured out. I just drove past, the place is called Camilla's house in Miami. He said, COVID's here. I just passed the Camilla's house in Miami, and there's 500 people in line trying to get food. And I was like, we need to do this right now. Like, we need to just figure it out. Stop trying to play with numbers and stop trying to figure it out. Let's just release the cigar, and then anything we make just goes to that. Anything. So just write him a check with anything. Any of the proceeds from the cigar, just write him a check. And then from there, we started talking to different people, and we did COVID. It was, oddly enough, and Rob and I had a conversation with the people that did this. You don't think about kids and in inner cities that don't necessarily have the money to afford art supplies.
Right.
And we found a charity that donated art supplies during COVID because you couldn't share them because kids weren't going to school. So usually the school has colored pencils, markers, paper, all that stuff. Well, if everybody's doing work from home, you know, you have to buy that stuff, and some people just can't afford it.
Right.
And that's not fair, you know, for me, in my opinion, you know, and it's not fair that people don't get to have Thanksgiving dinner. We did one for the Pavo, which for that, and Christmas, the Toys for Tots, and Tunnels and Towers we did with Juan from Protocol.
Yeah.
And all of these, the charitable components to the lost and found stuff is all stuff that's near and dear to us, and things that we've experienced, and it's all going to things that they're really making a difference. It's not like, you know, like UNICEF or like that, like Save a Child for 10 cents a week thing that I don't think even really works. It's real impact, and we've seen it. But but then again, I don't, and I told Rob this, I don't ever want to publish the numbers. I don't want anyone, like, I just want us to do it and be proud of it. And that's for us. And it's also for the guy smoking that cigar that knows that he did something good by buying a bundle of cigars, and there's an impact somewhere on someone because of that purchase he made in that cigar that he's smoking.
Well, it's a very personal I mean, it started off as a very personal project for you guys. This was about you guys sharing your love of these gems that you found to the consumer, and then it was expanded upon that very personal, you know, giving to everything. It was kind of like the next step in making that statement, like, hey, this isn't about money. This isn't a money grab. This is about the bigger picture. This is about sharing what we love, and then also, you know, sharing even more with those less fortunate. It's a beautiful project. It's fantastic what you guys have done.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So, I guess it's kind of gained a spotlight in recent months just because of, you know, some of the stories that have come across the line in Cigar Media, and we talk about responsible marketing and stuff. And I think the case could be made, like, early on, there was some that kind of, I guess, towed the line of what there's been conversation about in recent months, but y'all have kind of gotten away from that a little bit in y'all, and at least in my mind.
It wasn't for, you know, first of all, to set the record straight, we never marketed to kids ever. It was never.
Of course, no, absolutely not. Oh yeah, no,
just a blanket statement.
Yeah,
and that was never our intention. It was always our intention to have fun. Okay, just for that to be said. We never ever thought that it would be an issue with saving this industry and making sure that this industry stays safe. And when we sat down and talked about it, it was time. It was time to make a change. It was time to evolve Lost and Found again, because it had evolved a million times before. And we had to grow up, and the brand had to grow up with us. And we didn't want to be the cause of the failure of this industry that we love so much. And it's that simple. And yeah, there were some that were kind of weird and funky, but we were also kids when we were doing it, you know, and not kids, but we were young in the industry, is what I meant. And now, you know, we've grown up and our lines have grown up, and I think it's important that we stay above board with everything, you know.
Well, I think you said it right there, Tony. Like, you know, with your blanket statement, you know, I mean, it's all about intent. You guys might have been young, and I mean, throw the word immature in there, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we were still telling fart jokes. I mean, you know, it was like.
Okay. But I mean.
And fart jokes are still funny, by the way.
Yes, they are. But I mean, again, the sole intention, or the core of what Lost and Found was built on, was in itself a very mature concept. You know, the idea of bringing these hidden treasures, these gems to light, so that people could enjoy them like you all did. I mean, that's, you know, who does that? you know, who's gonna do that? You guys are, well, obviously we're the first and have been the innovators. And then there's been several people that have kind of followed suit a little bit with that, but it's the way that you all have gone about it from the very beginning. And you could argue that there were some immature components to it, but like the idea and the concept itself was very, was very mature and and then obviously evolved with the charitable component and everything. I've just been a big fan of it. And what the work
Yeah,
that
and
y'all
we
have
never,
done.
and again with to go back to the packaging thing, we never thought that they would get into any, like, they weren't even meant to go to really cigar stores. They were just meant to go to like our friends. You know what I mean? It wasn't
Right.
like, and that was really the fun part about it, was like I could put, you know, Rob's face on something, like whatever, like a goat if I wanted to. You know what I mean? And it didn't matter. And he could do the same to me. It was just like
Right.
that was, and I don't know if you've seen the new packaging, but I mean, this is what Lost and Found looks like now today.
The antique.
Yeah. So this is antique. Each one has the vintage, all handwritten, very pretty. And then I also have, ironically enough, they just came in, is these guys. This is the Instant Classic. This is a box press Toro. These are very, very pretty. I'll show you these guys. This is the first manufactured Lost and Found product that we're doing. So these are actually made for us, but
Oh, okay.
so this is,
Oh, those look
Instant.
gorgeous.
But yeah, so we're also starting with Lost and Found because oddly enough, like the antique line is going to be sparing, because literally like we're getting to the end of these lost cigars that we've found, like they're because of COVID and other various items, and manufacturers are now doing a very similar program to Lost and Found, and a lot of other brands have done it. So we are starting our own manufacturing aspect to it. And we started that project about halfway through, 5 years ago. We did originally the Instant Classic wet pack was one that we made, but the Lost and Found idea is going to be very similar in that these cigars they're not going to be young. You know what I mean? They're going to be like 7 to 10 years old before we release them. There could still be some lost blends in there. But pepper cream soda is a perfect example of something that we would love to revisit as making it an actual cigar, just because the cigar was so damn good.
Yeah, I remember it was fantastic. Backdoor Bambi was another one that I really enjoyed. Yep. No, so that was going to be my next question. I think you obviously just answered. It was like, how much longer can this concept keep going? How many treasures can you find? But it's been quite a bit so far, obviously.
Yeah, and there was a lot when we started, and now there's like, but that's what's also cool about it is that we started this thing and we were finding some treasures, but now we're like, because we've had the relationships with these guys for so long now, the antique line, this is stuff that like, I wish I could tell you what it was, man, but it's stuff that's like, it would blow your mind if you knew what some of the antique cigars used to be. And we're getting them because of our relationship, and they're finally allowing us access to the last of this. Some of the antique stuff we have is from 2002. I think that's the oldest one. It's a 20-year-old cigar. Yeah.
Damn.
It's still amazing,
And is the idea to keep the charitable component still going with it too, as well?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We just did with the 15 minutes of fame one. We fed, we did another thing with Camilla's house. Antique is still going. I'm trying to work on a deal with the people that I was telling you about earlier to try to find something to do with them. But yeah, that's the goal, is to keep that company is going to stay, as we're going to keep that company helping people as long as we can keep it helping people.
Okay. Well, that's a great move into one of our fun segments, which is what comes next here, Tony. So this one usually comes later, but let's hop ahead since you kind of just teased it a little bit. You know, one of my favorite things that I've launched since, it's been a year and a half of this. I launched on my birthday a year and a half ago, and every week here on ELOSOFUMARTAKES, we spotlight a charity or nonprofit of my guest's choosing, and it's been a lot of fun because we've learned a lot about not only our guests and some of the things that they're involved in, but more importantly, we're learning about some amazing causes. And you, of course, tonight chose the Purple Cat. Really funky name,
Yeah.
but a great organization. And there's an incredible story behind this. And true to form, it's Mother's Day, and it has to do with your mom. So, so talk a little bit about what the Purple Cat is and why you chose to spotlight it tonight.
So my mother has her master's degree in special education, and she was a teacher for, I think, however long you have to be a teacher for before they make you retire, 35 years or 40 years. And then she worked for the county. She worked for the county, and then she worked for a local university teaching a special education class. And then she started getting involved with different charitable organizations. Ironically enough, I just remember this. The first event we did with Winwood and introducing the Barba Cigars was a Purple Cat event where we donated all of our profits from that event. Talk about coming full circle. We donated all of our profits from that event to the Purple Cat. And Elio, the kid who painted the famous rabbit in the hat and has done Eastern Standard, we did a painting on one of Jimmy Sutman, who's the organization leader for Golden String, because Jimmy had heard about him from someone else, and it was just like this weird, like everyone knew each other somehow, really small crazy world that we all hooked up, and we did this big blowout party. I was on the news. It was a huge crazy thing. But anyway, long story short, my mom then after she retired began working with adults with disabilities, because oddly enough, there is a huge problem with adults with disabilities entering the workforce and having a place to live after they're done with school. And that's something a lot of people don't think about, but it's hard, number one, to get a job. And a lot of adults with disabilities can't live on their own. They need assisted living. So with the Purple Cat, Golden String, there's a whole team of them. So the Purple Cat, there's the Purple Cat. There's another one called Golden String, and that's their radio station. They have a full 24-hour a day disc jockeyed radio station called Golden String Radio. They have a couple different candy shops, and they have a couple different opportunities they have a farm, and they have a couple different opportunities for adults with disabilities to do various jobs. And they also provide them with housing if it's available, in addition to assisted living, and getting them and then what the organization does also is works with the federal government and the state government to make sure that this isn't an area that is overlooked by the government, because it is so important. So that this is something very dear to my heart, because I grew up with my mom, and I grew up with a lot of her students, and now her students who she's kept in touch with are now my age. And it's been fun watching them enter the workforce and working the farm, and like having something that's their own. And I think that that's very important, and that's why the Purple Cat and Golden String were my picks for my charitable organization.
Well, it's fantastic. I that kind of rings personal for me too, Tony, because I have a cousin. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us, but you hit the nail on the head with this gap, because like all through school, like he attended school, he graduated from high school, he actually had a job in high school. He worked at a local pizza parlor, but once school ended for him, that's
Crickets,
kind of
probably.
What's that?
Crickets, like nobody there to do anything.
Yeah, it just, there was, and he was kind of just left to live this life. And, his parents did the best that they could. But, he just, like you said, like his life lost that track that it was on. I mean, he went to school, he was working and everything. But after that, the program stopped and everything like that. And it kind of went away for him. And I feel like, if he had access to like the Purple Cat or something along those lines, I feel like his life could have been a lot more fulfilling than it ended up being. And I say that with the greatest respect for my family member. I mean, but those last years were lost just because he had no purpose and he felt no drive. And that had to, he never said anything like it, but I could feel it, that he felt like he wasn't worth much. And that's just not true. It just wasn't true. He was an
And it's
incredible
terrible because
person.
I mean, you can't, no human being should feel like that ever, no matter who it is. I don't think any human being should ever have to feel like they're not, that they don't have a place to go, or a quality of life, or anything like that. I just don't think I don't think it should be tolerated, personally. I mean, there's a lot of things that are less important, I think, in this world than people having a decent quality of life, no matter who you are.
No, definitely. So is your mom retired, or is she working in school still, or?
No, I made my mom my accountant.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You're telling me that. Oh,
Yeah,
that's it.
she had with no accounting experience whatsoever. So she does all my bills and all that stuff. So
Is she still working? Does she still work with the Purple Cat on occasion? Or?
yeah, so she'll do, like, we'll do, like, I mean, as dumb as this sounds, because I'm like a public figure in town, I do, like, they call them celebrity bartending nights, where I'll go, like, bartend, and all my tips will go to charity, or I'll wait tables and all my tips will go to charity.
That's awesome.
We do stuff for the Rich Foundation in town here, which is for that's an autism charity. But my mom will occasionally, she still is in touch with them, and golfs with all of the ladies, and they still do the Special Olympics golf outings and all that stuff.
Oh, terrific.
But every once in a while, I get the call to arms, where my mom will need me to come help out for a little bit and use my local celebrity prowess to get tips.
So this wasn't just a vocation for her, though. Like, this wasn't just work. This is her life's work. I mean, she continues it to this day. I mean, it's a true passion for her.
Yeah, and she's been doing it since she was 16 years old. I mean, she started working at the school as an aide, when she was 16, and that's all. It's all she ever wanted to do. Now she has to do my accounting, so I'm sure she's real thrilled with all that.
So Tony, I was looking through this on their website and everything. I can't find, I'm sure you know of it. Is there a direct way to donate money to the Purple Cat? I could not find a link on their website.
Maybe Golden String would have that.
Okay.
Golden String Radio. But if anybody reaches out to you, I can get that for you. Because I deal usually with Jimmy Sutman, who's the guy that runs it.
Absolutely, yeah. If you could get me a link or contact information to pass the donation on, because so a part of this, Tony, every week is my wife and I have actually pledged weekly to donate a small amount to everyone's charity that they bring forth.
Okay, yeah, I'll be in touch with his contact information. Perfect. I don't know why there's nothing on the website. I mean, I know it's
I'm probably just missing it, maybe, but yeah, usually they have like a donate link or something.
Yeah, it's not the greatest,
but it tells a lot of the great story. There's like, I posted the link in the chat. It'll be in the show notes as well, Gal. But check it out. It's there's a lot of great stories on the site. There's a lot of great programs that they do. I mean, Tony's just scratching the surface. But thank you so much for bringing this wonderful organization, your mom's life's work, to us. I think it's just absolutely perfect. It's beautiful.
My pleasure.
Thank you. So that will lead us into our next segment of the evening, which is, of course, our one must go. You probably remember this, Tony. As always, it's brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. Smoke one today and start living united. So Tony, as I know you've done this a couple of times with us before, but here are the rules. So I'm going to give you three things, and one's got to go. So I typically try to curb it around my guest a little bit, and so I thought of three very specific pairings. Now they're not all the same thing, obviously, as you'll know here in just a second, but I thought of three things that came to mind when I think about you, and specifically pairings. So I thought these are the three things, and one's got to go, and they're all pretty classic for you, at least in my mind. You might obviously disagree. So the first option is Bordeaux with filet. That's your go-to when you're having steaks. So Miller High Life.
I did have a Chateaubriand the other day, and it was very, very good. And I drank California Cab. Anyway.
Nice. Well, I know, like you said, it's always about the moment, right? It's always about the cut and stuff. And I know you like steak in general, but I know your main favorite is filet.
It is.
So Bordeaux and filet, Miller High Life and cooking, because I know that's also your jam, and a final selection of Youngstown coffee with your choice of a La Barba in the morning. So one of those pairings has to go: Bordeaux and filet, Miller High Life and cooking, or your favorite Youngstown coffee with your choice of La Barba in the morning. So
here's the question I got for you to answer your question. Does High Life stay in my life, just not while I'm cooking? Or I have to?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. It's just, you got to get rid of it with the pairing. Like, you can never have another filet with Bordeaux. You can have Bordeaux, but not with filet. You can have filet, but not with Bordeaux. You can have Miller High Life, you just can't cook. You can cook, you just can't do it with Miller High Life. You can drink coffee, no La Barba cigar. You can have, obviously, La Barba cigars, but no Youngstown coffee.
I gotta go cooking with High Life. I can't get those other things up. I love to have hot Miller High Life while I'm cooking. I really do. But I think that I can get around it. I get around this rule by having like Budweiser would be okay,
I'm like having my go-to cheap beer.
Yeah,
or the PBR. I see the PBR hat you've been wearing tonight too.
Oh yeah, I can do PBR for sure. It's hard. It sucks. It's hard to find PBR in a bottle. That's one of my favorite things. Like, PBR in a bottle is very hard for me to find. Yeah, I've been drinking. My other dive beer that I've been drinking a lot of is Busch. Busch Heavy is very good. And Coors Banquet, which I heard they're getting rid of Coors Banquet beer, by the way. So if you like it, you better get it quickly.
Oh, that's just tragic, man.
No,
that's tragic. Busch. Oh man, that's one I've never really cared for. I mean, I'm down with PBR. I'm down with High Life. What
is the Texas dive? What is the Texas beer of choice? Dive beer.
Lone Star.
Is it just Lone Star?
It's just strictly Lone Star. Tecate,
you guys drink a lot of Tecate down there.
Tecate probably, but I would say, like, if you went around the frat houses on Saturday morning, you would just see empty cases of Natty Light everywhere, or Keystone, which the Keystone, not so bad. I can get around that. Natty Light, I'd have to be very desperate to drink a Natty Light. That's not very good for me. The beer that I will absolutely I'll go without beer. Even if someone hands it to me, I'll just say no, thank you. I for whatever reason, it's funny because I'll drink a High Life, but I can't do Miller Lite.
They're completely different. You know what I had that was very good the other day, because they were out of High Life. Because I have High Life with my chicken wings. They were out of High Life, but they had Miller Genuine Draft.
MGD, man, the clear bottle. Oh man.
Oh, it was fantastic. MGD was really good. I haven't had one. I hadn't had a beer that tasted that good in a long time, since High Life. I actually had a 40. I drank a 40 of High Life last night.
Right before cutting down some trees today, man. I'm sure that.
Yeah, I don't know why. I was with my fiance and she's like, let's get 40s. So she had a 40 Busch Light and I had a 40 Miller High Life.
Woman after your own heart, man. It sounds like you found your soulmate there. That's perfect.
I know. I know.
um, we're talking about memories and nostalgia. I could tell you the first interaction with Miller Genuine Draft, MGD. My dad, we were at a restaurant. It's called the Great American Steak Burger. So it's kind of a steakhouse in El Paso, Texas. It's not really. When we think of steakhouses, we think of like Del Frisco's and things like that, and some of the other finer establishments around the country. But it's a fine restaurant. It's truly wonderful. But like moderately priced, like a step above Texas Roadhouse, but like a step below Del Frisco's, if that makes sense. But that was like our family restaurant. We didn't eat out very much at all. But whenever we would go to celebrate something, or like my dad's like boss came in town and wanted to take us to dinner, something like that, that's where we would go. And I remember Miller Genuine Draft in the bottle. My dad sitting there, and there was something very attractive about it. And my dad asked me, he's like, "Do you want to sip?" And I was like, "Yeah, I sure do." And I remember drinking Miller Genuine Draft at the Great American. So that's my memory. So,
MGD, man.
MGD. Awesome.
Yeah.
So you can get around it. So the Miller High Life and Cooking is the one that's got to go.
Yeah, because I could probably also change it to MGD or PBR. I could change it too.
There you go. So that was our One Must Go segment. As always, it's brought to you by United Cigars, featuring La Giana Havana, distributors of Jose Dominguez, Bandolero, Garofalo, and the highly acclaimed Atabey and Byron lines. So thanks for participating in that, Tony. So we've talked a lot about like moments and memories and everything tonight. So I think this next segment is actually perfect to kind of, I'm really interested to hear, and I'm sure there's a lot of these moments, but we always talk about in the cigar industry about how community driven is. We're doing it now. You and I are sharing a cigar, even though it's done virtually, but you and I are sharing a cigar together. We do events in stores and shops, and the cigar shop has its own community and its own fraternal or family establishment to it. So it's very community driven. But every so often we have those moments where it's just us and the cigar. And so that's our next segment, which is brought to you by Asylum Cigars. Refuge is more than just a physical place. It can be a state of mind. Some of life's greatest reflections can be found in one person, in your own personal asylum. Moments like these were made for Asylum Cigars. Light up an asylum and choose your refuge. So Tony, here's the question. It doesn't have to be like the most momentous. There's probably been a few. But that moment where it was just you and the cigar, what was the cigar and what were you doing? And what was the moment?
Wow. There's a lot of them. I'm racking my brain here. I would say, I think I got it. I would say it was, everyone had gone, we were in Dominican Republic, and everyone had gone in for the night. And I was the last one on the patio at Camp David. And I lit what was going to be a La Barba Purple. And I was up there just like looking at the city. It was like one of those moments where you don't think it's real. And I just remember thinking to myself, like, how did I get here? How did this all happen? And there was a reflection of like everything that had happened prior to that. And then it was like, where is this all going? And where am I going? Because I have no fucking idea. And I smoked the whole thing on the I was up till like 3:30, just in like this serious contemplation. Like, I mean, I had rum, so that also helps with contemplation. But it was like, I just couldn't believe where I was at, and I didn't know where I was going. And it was like this, like thrilling, but very anxious, like kind of weight that just landed on me. Because at the point I was so, tunnel visioned on getting it done, getting all this done, and looking just right in front of my face. It was the first time I had sat down and really thought about like the journey up to, and then the journey coming from. And then I don't think, I'm trying to think of the next time that I've actually, like, from then the last time I sat down and thought, this is the first time I've actually thought about me thinking about that. And now looking back on all of the other crazy shit that's happened, I maybe need to do that again. And really do that, have that contemplative thought of how I got where I got and where I'm going next, because I really still don't know.
Did you find an answer that night? You said
No.
you thought, how did I get here?
How did I get here? I kind of got a grasp on, but where I'm going, I had no idea. So I still don't. That's 10 years ago, almost. It's like something new every day,
We talked about this the last time you were on. I don't know if you remember, but we talked about the legacy of at the time La Barba, and now La Barba and Bellatto Premium, right? And its collective effort, and you can actually even tie in Lost and Found, because I know it's you and Robert's project too. I mean, is that the goal, or is it more of a? Could you characterize it as a hope that 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 50 years from now, that La Barba, the name Bellatto, is in the same conversation with Ashton Fuente?
Yeah, I think that legacy is very important to me. I think legacy is more important to the cigar business. So I think that, in my mind, I just want people to look at the things that I've done and innovate from there, number one, and number two, maybe say, like, he had an impact, a positive impact on this industry in XYZ way. And I think that's important. And I think it's important to usher in, we're still, the younger guys on the block in the cigar business, at least I think so. But I think it's important to usher in the next generation of people that are going to be in the cigar business, and pass the legacy, the torch, so on down to them, and make sure that they give it the respect that it deserves through their tenure in this industry.
With all your different ventures, and we could probably spend the night picking through them and talking about the importance of them and why they're important to you. But since we're on the subject of cigars, obviously, like, what is it about the cigar industry that is so important to you? Why is this legacy so important in this specific arena to you?
It's because it's what made me who I am. I mean, it literally grew me up. I mean, this business has been my entire life, and everything, and I could, again, tell you stories and stories about things that I've seen, but I learned about everything through this business. Like, granted, I ended up going, I went to school for wine, but I went to school for wine because I love cigars. It wasn't the other way around.
Oh, okay.
I wanted to grab a hold of anything that I could that would tell me what my palate was all about. I was literally obsessed with it. I still am, but I was then too. But what is it about this industry, in addition to that, is like we talked about earlier, like, first of all, I don't have to wear a suit, okay? And I won't usually wear one. But my days aren't boring. And every day I get to talk to somebody that I'm friends with. And just like tonight, like you and I developed a friendship over the past 10 years, or how long have you been doing this? 5 now or so, right?
5, yeah.
Roughly. I mean, over the past 5 years, you and I have developed a relationship where, like, like I randomly just walked into Michael's that one day. I didn't even know where I was going. I didn't know I was ending up at your shop, and you were there, and we had a conversation, and we just hung out. And you can't do that really in any other industry, I don't think. You don't get that, and you don't get the, I guarantee you, if you were in Cleveland, you called me up, say, hey, let's go get dinner, I would say yes. Or let's hang out, have a cigar, and have a beer, or whatever. I'll say yes. I mean, that's what this business does. It doesn't matter what you do for a living. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't, none of that matters in the hour and a half that it takes you to smoke a cigar with somebody else. And the things that I've learned and the people that I've met, and weirdly enough, because of cigar stores, the things that I have access to are just incredible. Like some guy, I was talking to somebody about getting married, and he's like, do you need a Dove guy? And I was like, what? And he's like, I got a Dove guy. I'm like, you have a Dove guy? He's like, yes, this guy comes and just releases doves at weddings. And then, like, in that very same breadth of a sentence, somebody else was like, oh, well, do you want to ride on the Goodyear blimp? Because I know the pilot. And I was like, kind of sitting around thinking to myself, like, just from the cigar business, like I can have doves released like on a John Woo movie, or go on the Goodyear blimp next week. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like if I ever wanted to make a video for La Barba of me like slow-mo running from a helicopter with doves in front of me, I have somebody that will do that for me. No questions asked. And it's because it's cigar business,
Right.
It's like that's the only way I can think of to explain it. It's like, I don't know, you just run into the most random people that do the most random shit, and then it's like even if I didn't call the guy and I was like, hey, I want some doves, like I know he'd be there. But like, I'll give you a box of La Barbas, just come release doves for me. But that's what the business is. That's what it does.
Yeah.
Because it forces you to take, because a cigar forces you to take time, to sit down. You can't get away from it. You can't like avoid it. So if you're going to smoke a cigar, you have to sit down with that cigar and you have to smoke it. And it takes 45 minutes to an hour. And if you're just sitting there, you're going to talk about something. You're going to strike up some conversation with somebody, and you're going to meet some guy that does something that you're going to need later on in your life. But no other business forces you to do that, and no other industry forces you to do that.
Absolutely. I mean, you just captured in like what I love about this industry, and we talk about it all the time. It's the greatest equalizer in the world. A Dove guy, the Goodyear blimp guy. I mean, that's just totally random.
And then to add on top of it, like guys like Carlos Fuente, Ernie Carrillo, Jose Blanco, like those guys are my heroes. Just getting to meet those guys, and the list does not end there. It just to make it a short story longer. But the guys that I look up to, these guys are like gods and heroes to me. And the fact that I can be in the same industry as them is a pleasure and an honor. And I think that not a lot of people understand, and sometimes they take that for granted. This is not cigars are not something you could go to school for. You have to be taught how to blend a cigar. You have to be taught how to smoke a cigar. It's handed down. It's not it's an art. It's handed down from the manufacturing side to the retail side to the consumption side. It's an art that's handed down through hundreds of years, and just to be a part of a tiny speck in that, that like it's too big to even explain. Like I don't even have a word to explain like how cool that is. Like to just be a part of that.
No, it really is. A lot of ways, like you've done it in a variety of different aspects. We share one commonality in terms of retail. I haven't owned a store, But other than that, like, each week I have the opportunity to have amazing conversations, like with you, for example, and with, like you said, legends in this business. And each one, we can characterize the impact that each of these individual guests have made on the industry. And even the ones that have made the smallest, if you wanted to argue, it's still impactful, and there's still a story to be told and everything. And the what I really excites me about your story in particular, Tony, is there's so much past wrapped into it, but there's so much future left in it as well. And that's what's really exciting to me. And I think it's one of the reasons why I guess I'm enchanted by your approach. And then
Thank you.
and then you also make cigars that really hit my palate incredibly well. So it's a win-win. So, but yeah, that's really fantastic. So, I love that there's a lot of honoring in the past, and it's also done. And I mean, with the exception of Bellatto Premium, I think that's probably the most obvious thing that you've done, to put a word on it, to honor the past. But there's so much, like you said, everything that you've done, and it's a culmination of who you are. It's your entire identity wrapped up. So I think it's a beautiful thing.
Thank you for saying that. I appreciate that.
So that was our Asylum Cigars moment. So light up an Asylum cigar and choose your refuge. Well, Tony, we just got a couple more questions here to wrap up our evening. And then of course our that always ends with our curveball segment. But just a couple of business aspects. You mentioned earlier, I mentioned it kind of just haphazardly, but the intention is for you at least to be at the PCA trade show this year. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And will you be sharing a booth with Caldwell, or will you be having your own booth again this year?
Would you call Caldwell's booth a booth? To answer your question with a question.
Not last year would probably be questionable. I guess straddled the line a little bit. I mean, there were people there. There was a space. I suppose it would be a booth. So
I will be obtaining my own space.
Your own space, okay.
Away from him as much as I can.
And will it be a shared space for both Bellatto and La Barba as well?
Yes.
Okay. That's awesome. Well, I'm really excited to see you at the trade show, and to see the at the very least the jars of air that might happen, or
yes,
see the actual
cigar,
product in the flesh. But we know the cigars are coming as soon as these logistics kind of iron themselves out.
The cigars are done. They're just laying there waiting for me.
Like you said, like we talked about, like labels and boxes is all we're as everyone, same thing.
They just need to be put in their little suits and their box homes, and then they come out.
I felt so bad for Michael Herklotz last year, because they had done all that work and all that prep and all that hype up into the show and everything, and they couldn't get a label and couldn't get a box made. It was just, oh God, it's heartbreaking, I'm sure, but he made the most of it.
Ricochet, Connecticut's on 2 years.
I was gonna say that's yeah, it is 2 years now. I know it's been something that's been working on for like 18 months or so. And the cigars are just, which means they're well aged, so that's perfect.
Makes them better.
There you go. So here's an interesting question, because I don't think it's anywhere in the scope of what you want to do, but you've, again, being in this business for as long as you've obviously had experience with it. So the recent intention and announcement of the FDA to look further into banning flavors in premium cigars. What was your whole take on that? Like, what do you think?
Well, I mean, I think that the FDA has no idea what's going on, which is unfortunate. I would think, my thought would be that they would hire somebody from within our industry to kind of guide them with how our industry actually works.
It's remarkable to me.
I have a problem with Okay, so I in my life and tenure as a cigar guy, have never once seen a 16 or 15-year-old kid come in and buy a $20 cigar, or at least try to. I've never had that experience in my life. It's they just I don't premium cigars, flavored or not, are just not attractive to kids. And the sooner the FDA knows that we can move that out of the like equation, I think the more relaxed that they're going to feel about having a sweet or flavored cigars on the market. And I always go back to alcohol, you know, and they just released, and oddly enough, like I don't know why, not to get into anybody else's business, but General has to know something, because they're not going to release the Fireball cigar with deeming regulations coming for flavored cigars. I don't think they're going to put that much money and effort into something that is going to come out to a regulation, right? When
Yeah.
you think that STG would know what was coming, and to
I mean,
release a product like Fireball whiskey cigars, I think would if I don't think flavored cigars are going anywhere if they're doing that.
yeah, I mean that did
I
catch
have
me
no
by
idea.
surprise. No, you're absolutely right. That did catch me by surprise, and I was like, but I mean, honestly, the first thought through my head, um, that went through my head was a money grab, but
Yeah,
but
but I mean, if they're putting, they gotta. That's a law. That's got to be a big project for them to put all that time and effort into licensing and dealing with, you know, Sazerac or whoever owns that brand, um, to get all this stuff done for just to go away. I don't think they're going to spend the money on.
yeah, when you say it out loud, it makes a lot more sense. That I mean, because well, I mean that's the cigar industry as a whole, right? The age old mantra: if you want to make $1 million in the cigar business, start with two.
Yeah,
But yeah,
absolutely.
the license. Gosh, I didn't even forget about the marketing and the manufacturing of the cigar. The licensing, you just hit it, man. That ain't cheap.
No, I mean,
So
I'm sure had to pay a shitload of it up front. But back to the question, and not to digress, I think that there needs to be a cut and dry, like this is the definition of a premium cigar that's more defined than it actually is written.
yeah,
And because I know a lot of guys that got into smoking cigars that were not even close to being kids by starting with acid cigars. Guys in their 40s. I know guys in their 50s that started smoking Rough Rider Sweets to get into cigars. I mean, it's an easy vessel for people to start understanding the world of tobacco.
hmm
And I think that if someone you know if someone wants to get in the cigar business and I give them a Mexi Sol Gran Robusto or a Ricochet Oscuro Corona, they're going to be like, I'm not smoking cigars anymore in my entire for my life, because they won't understand them. They're too strong. They probably don't know the etiquette yet. They probably don't know what they're doing, but it's it's something that needs to. I think it's something that needs to stay. Is my point.
yeah, I
I mean, they have. I just don't. I don't get. Here's what I don't get to add on top of that. Okay, you can walk in the supermarket. You can get Mountain Dew Fruit Loop flavored vodka, right? You can get
not here in Texas, but other places that sell liquor in grocery stores, absolutely.
yeah, cinnamon whiskey. Where's that? Where's the regulation for that? Like what's the difference?
There
Why
isn't any.
why
Yeah,
exactly? And I mean, the age to consume both is the same. The I don't get it. I don't get what they're trying to do, and I don't agree. I obviously don't agree with any regulation, um, but I definitely don't agree with this one.
yeah. The alcohol take is really unusual, and specifically the craft beer industry is really bad with it, right? I mean, they're really it's over the top almost in terms of like that argument of marketing to kids, and you're right, there isn't for all this talk about, like MAD and, Mothers Against Drunk Driving and things like that, and underage drinking being an issue and stuff, you know, they're not really cracking down on it, when you've got, like you said, Mountain Dew flavored vodka, or, I mean, I don't know many, I'm almost 40 as well. I don't know many people my age that are going and buying these crazy flavors of vodka and stuff like
Is
that.
alcohol, and I don't know why I don't know the answer to this question. Maybe you can help me out here. But is alcohol under the purview of FDA? Because it's a drug.
I don't know. Wow, that's a great one.
I never even thought to think about that. But like, it should be, right?
Surely it's not still under ATF. It might still be, but
I don't think the FDA has anything to do with alcohol.
now I'm Googling it. I'm straight up Googling it because, well, in Texas we have our own. We have our own. I know that. That's TABC, Texas Alcoholic Beverage Commission, and that's a whole other monster.
I know the states have a
It
bunch,
might be
but
state. Yeah, it might be state governed. That might be it. With the same, like you said, like I kind of cracked a joke about it, but in Ohio and many other places, you can go buy, a fifth of vodka at, a Kroger or whatever. You can't in Texas. We don't have, I mean, we have beer and wine sales in the grocery stores, but we don't have, you have to have a specific liquor store. So that's TABC at its finest.
well, we have, so ours are technically Ohio Department of Liquor Control stores inside of our grocery stores. So what they do is,
Okay.
the genius behind this is what the grocery store chains do is they go buy all the mom and pop liquor licenses out there. And the argument is that it's safer to buy liquor at a grocery store than it is to buy at the liquor store because liquor stores get robbed. So they buy all the mom and pop liquor stores out. Because I do know that the state owns all the alcohol in the state.
Right.
So
right.
even if it's at a store, the state still owns it until you buy it.
So it looks like the USDA, actually, the Department of Treasury's Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau, regulates aspects of alcohol production, importation, and other aspects. So the USDA. Okay. Oh yeah. So okay. So the USDA does what the FDA does for the tobacco industry. So they regulate aspects of the alcohol production, importation, wholesale distribution, labeling, and advertising. So yeah. So it's essentially what the FDA does. So it's the USDA for the alcohol industry. So
I just want someone to tell me what the difference is.
yeah, no, I think that's an absolutely fair question. It's a fair question. That's yeah, it's one of those. It's one of that's always been my thing too. Like, it seemed like every year since I got into the cigar industry, there's always been like these tax hikes. It started with the S chip back in 08, right? And it's just kept compiling. I was like, what about, they're like, well, they're always going to tax the vice. I'm like, well, there's plenty of other vices out there,
Yeah.
like alcohol, like we talked about,
Figure out marijuana. Why don't you work on that? Because that's a lot of tax money that you could be getting.
Why aren't strip clubs getting taxed? Why aren't they getting hit
Yeah.
with this, But you touched on this a second ago. I do have to make this point about you said the legal age. This is the same, and it's true now, unfortunately. One of the most heartbreaking experiences I've ever had as a retailer was because it was overnight. It was an overnight declaration. Hey,
Yep.
No more, tobacco 21, right? And I had to tell a customer of mine who I'd built a friendship with, actually, over 2 years. He was 20 years old. He came in on his 18th birthday, and I got to know the kid. And he's 20 years old, and I had to tell him, the day he came in, the first time I saw him, and I was like, God, and I was dreading it because I saw him virtually every week. He would come in every Saturday and he would hang out with us. And I had to tell him that he had to leave.
That's crazy.
It was the most heartbreaking experience I've ever had in this industry.
Yeah.
I mean, hands down. So
Did you see that, like, in New Zealand or Australia, I think it's if you're born after a certain age, you're never allowed to buy tobacco ever. I think it's if you're born after the year, I don't know. There was an Australian guy I was talking to, and he's like, there's a law in Australia that is being pushed through that says if you're born after a certain date, you're never allowed to buy tobacco ever. Doesn't matter how old you are.
Wow. I'll have to get with Dave Burke on that, the co-host of Cigar Jukebox with Coop.
Oh yeah. Yep.
And figure
Get
out.
back to me on that.
I will, because
I don't know if it went through or if it's in Parliament, if that's what they have, or.
Well, I know Hawaii is really trying to push that 25, and that was my biggest beef about T21 was like you think they're going to stop? You think the anti-tobacco lobby is going to stop at 21? No, they're not.
Right.
It's going to be 25. And it's going to be 30. And all of a sudden, Tony, you and I are going to be smoking in our 50s, and then they're going to, come knocking on our door saying that we have to give up our cigars because we're too young.
Yeah.
It's bullshit. It's absolute bullshit. So let's end the night on a high note, on a little bit of fun. So this is our curveball segment. It's always brought to you by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. Fastballs or curveballs, it doesn't matter. Since the company's inception, Steve Saka has been knocking them out of the park. 7 consecutive years in the consensus top 3, including this last year. Congratulations to our good friend Steve Saka on the accomplishment. So Tony, we talked about how you got into wine because you wanted to understand your palate more, and that's so the intention was always cigars, and that was always the underlying motivator and everything. So you've been a sommelier, you've worked in retail, you're a cigar manufacturer, brand owner, all essentially your life's work, as we were talking about earlier. But what's a job that you would never do? Doesn't matter how much money could be offered your way. They would, like the age old saying, that someone could offer you $1 million a year, you wouldn't do it. What's a job you would never do? Didn't matter how much they could pay you.
It's a good question. $1 million a year is a lot of money.
Well, yeah. I mean, I just threw the number out. But what my motivation, like I said, this is just a curveball question, just to be fun. But
yeah,
my inspiration behind this was Mike Rowe's Dirty Jobs.
Yeah, of course.
So,
I was actually Rolodexing all of the episodes of that I saw. I'm not really that fond of like killing stuff, one, and I'm not really fond of like snakes and mice and rats and shit. So like I think like being an exterminator would be one that would take me a lot to like, because I had to like kill these mice in my garage, and it really like upset me for some reason. I was like, these poor mice I had to kill in my garage just because they were in my garage. Like they didn't know it was my garage.
Right.
That'd be probably one. I don't think I'd like. I don't know. There's not really anything I hate that I absolutely wouldn't do if I didn't have to.
Nothing that grosses you out, other than, I guess, killing things.
Yeah, and I wouldn't like killing people either. So
good call. Okay.
Yeah, I guess that's where I'd be with that. Like things don't really like gross me out that much. I mean, sometimes the smell of stuff will make me gag, but it's not like so bad that I wouldn't do it. But I guess if I had to do it every day, I wouldn't want to do it.
What's the smell that makes you gag?
A common one used to be, and I had a cat. So cat food used to make me gag every time I would feed my cat. And it was like aggressive, like almost throwing up gagging. And somehow I just like got through it. And same with cat pee.
Cat pee. I was gonna say cat pee is the worst.
Yeah.
Oh God, it's the absolute worst. Oh, I'm a dog person. My dog's actually asleep at my feet right now, but we also have a cat because my son wanted one, and my wife is a cat person. My son wanted one for his birthday, so a couple years ago we got this cat, and by and large he's a good one. You know, he uses the litter box, and we don't feed him the wet food, which smells really bad, so it's just the dry stuff. So lucked out there, which is really great. But he's a good one. Well, I'll keep him around. But yeah, cat pee. Oh God, it's the worst. It's the
I
worst.
think if I ever get another cat, I think I'm gonna toilet train it. I think. Have you seen those things? How you can toilet train a cat?
Yeah, we have one of those automatic litter boxes. Those things are money.
Yeah.
Because they don't smell and they clean up after themselves. And it's perfect. It's awesome. It's awesome. And my wife changes it out when it needs to be changed. So I'm like, sweet. That's called winning. I'll take it.
Yes.
So
That is a big win.
So, all right. Well, that was our curveball segment, always brought to you by Dunbarton Tobacco and Trust. And that'll wrap things up here on our 209 take. Tony, thank you so much for spending a Sunday evening with me.
My pleasure. Thank you.
On Mother's Day, no less. Hope your mother enjoyed her day of solitude as you guys were cutting down trees on your property.
Yep, she certainly did.
So, well, for all the moms out there, we appreciate you as well. So I hope you guys had a great day, and happy Mother's Day to my mother, Virginia, and my wife, who is the mother of my two beautiful sons, and of course to Mrs. Bellatto as well. We thank you for everything that you've done in our lives, and for the lives around you that you've touched as well, especially your mom and all the work that she did with all those kids growing up, and the work that she continues today with other organizations like the Purple Cat that we talked about tonight too. So thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
For everyone out there, this was our 209th take. Can't believe I've done 209 of these. This is insane. And it was my pleasure to talk to you all tonight. Hope you had enjoyed the time and enjoyed the great conversation that we had with Tony. You can check us out on our YouTube channel, ELOSOFUMAR. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Check out our Facebook page. Hit the like button as well. That's where you can find a calendar of upcoming guests. We've got some great shows coming up on lineup as we take our trail all the way to the trade show coming up here in a couple of months. I can't believe it's only a couple months away. It'll be really exciting. We've got some great guests lined up for you, including Glenn Case of Christoph Cigars next week. We'll also be we'll be revisiting our cinema edition of ELOSOFUMARTAKES. It's the 50th. Speaking of 50 years, The Godfather. The Godfather celebrating its 50th anniversary. So Sam Spencer and Fred Rui will be back, and we'll be talking all things The Godfather in a couple of weeks. So definitely want to mark your calendars for that one as well. So for everyone out there, check out all your likes, shares, and comments. We really appreciate it. And if you are listening to us later, wherever you listen to podcasts, whether that be on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Podbean, or wherever you listen to podcasts, be sure you hit the download, subscribe, and review button as well. If you are a subscriber, do me a favor, hit unsubscribe. But please don't forget to hit resubscribe. That really helps my numbers so that I can get great guests like Tony back on the show, as always. And for everyone out there, I'm Barry Duplessis. He's Tony Bellatto. And guess what, everybody? We'll see you next time.
Cheers.